All right, y'all, we on the man, Mr. Nightmare. We ain't got three scary. We got four scary, true stranded horror stories. We ain't gonna waste no time. We just gonna get right into it. Let's go. Story one.
I hear weird stories all the time, but I never thought I would have my own to share someday. This happened to me about a year ago when I was basically stranded in the middle of nowhere. I'm in a band, and anybody who's in a band knows the struggle can be real. There have been times when we've played in rooms that literally don't have another person in the building. You take show opportunities whenever you can get them. On this specific night, I drove about 2 hours from where I live to play a show in a small town. The other guys in the band offered to drive me, but I told them I would drive myself since I would be driving right from my other job. Because of my band obligations, normal jobs have always taken a back seat, and as a result, I'm broke. I sacrifice bills all the time so I can put gas in my car to drive to these shows. When I was driving to that show, I realized that my gas tank was not in a great position. By the time I arrived, I was closer to empty than I wanted to admit. After the show, my bandmates left before me. I grabbed a drink at a bar and hung out with the locals for a while before hitting the road. It was nearly 2 in the morning when I finally left. I pulled into the 24-hour gas station that was down the road from the bar and I tried to get some gas. Of course, my car wasn't working at the pump. I had $5 in cash on me, so I used that and hoped I could make it home. I wasn't very optimistic. I did try texting my brother to see if he could Venmo me some extra money for gas and that I would pay him back. But since it was so late, he obviously didn't text me back. I started the long drive home, and I didn't make it very far, as you might expect. I ran out of gas, and I still had almost an hour left to drive. I was sitting on the side of the road, trying to figure out what to do. Service on my phone was terrible, but I could probably get a signal if I got out of my car and tried hard enough. Since it was so late, I didn't really want to call anybody and worry them, especially since I was so far away from home. I thought about just closing my eyes and resting for a few hours until dawn, and then I would call someone. But I didn't know if that was against the law to technically sleep on the side of the road. It felt sketchy. I figured my best option was just to wait out the clock until dawn. I could call my brother and we could figure something out. I tried pulling up YouTube on my phone, but it just wouldn't load properly because of the bad cell service. I felt so helpless just sitting there. It was a real eye-opener for me. I really needed to get my life in order. I was sitting in my car for about half an hour when I caught something out of the corner of my eye. I looked out of the passenger side window, and standing about 30 or 40 feet away from my car was a person with a hood on. They weren't moving or doing anything that was necessarily threatening, but it didn't make it any less terrifying. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. If you see a random hooded person just appear in the middle of nowhere,
Get out.
you'd be a little freaked out also. I made sure I locked the doors, and I just kept my eyes on this strange figure that came out of nowhere. The only time I broke my stare was when I started looking at all my mirrors and the surrounding areas of my car to make sure I didn't see anyone else. There were no other people, no car, nothing. Just this person with the hood on. When I looked back at the figure, I noticed that they were moving very slowly toward my car. Like, unnaturally slow. I never felt so helpless in my life. I was literally in a car and I couldn't just drive away. It was like being stuck in quicksand. Eventually, they were within just a few feet of the car. I couldn't exactly tell what they looked like in detail, but I could confirm that it was a young woman under the hood, probably in her 20s. I tried shouting at the girl with my window still completely rolled up, asking what she needed or if she was okay. She didn't answer. Even though I was freaking out a little bit, at the end of the day, I still felt somewhat safe because I was inside my locked car. When she was standing a few feet away, she stopped inching closer. Then she just stood outside the car. It was the most unnerving moment of my life. Every minute or so, I would continue shouting at the woman, offering help, but just like before, no response at all. This may sound crazy, but I was trying to ignore her. Since I was stranded on the side of the road, I couldn't drive, my phone wasn't really working, and I wasn't about to get out of my car. I just decided to leave her alone. I was trying to sing songs and mentally work on some chords while this strange woman just stood a couple feet away from me watching. Ignoring her proved to be harder than I thought. I couldn't take that horrible feeling anymore. It had to have been 10 times I tried to communicate with this woman. Finally, I decided I was going to try to record her. I pulled up the camera on my phone and tried pointing it out the window even though it was super dark. As soon as I started recording out the window, the woman moved in closer and started banging on the passenger door and trying to open it. I wish I had kept recording, but the panic I felt in the moment caused me to freak out and drop the phone. It almost sounded like she was growling or grunting. The sound was weird, almost unnatural. All of this happened so fast, but I still tried to get a better look at the woman when she was beating on the door. She really did just look like a normal girl with blonde hair. She didn't look evil or monstrous. I wasn't going to wait for this woman to break my window and try eating my face. I grabbed my phone from the floor of the car, my keys, and grabbed my guitar from the back seat. I took a deep breath, unlocked my door, and ran as fast as I could down the road. While I was running away, I looked back, and the woman didn't chase me. I stopped running and looked at her. She was slowly walking in my direction, but not running after me or even breaking into my car. She was just walking in the same direction as me. I shouted at her one last time, asking what she wanted, but still no response at all. She just continued to walk in my direction. That was a big nope for me. I turned back around and just ran as fast as I could. I remember when I was driving to the show, I passed a good amount of nothing. Before all of the nothingness, there was a small town. I planned on running as far as I could in the direction of that town until dawn, and then I would call for help. I realized I could have called the police at any moment, but this didn't seem like a police call in my mind at the time, as stupid as that sounds. Where I come from, you avoid calling the cops whenever you can. It's an ignorant and stubborn characteristic, I know that. At 6 in the morning, I was finally approaching the small town. At the same time, I called my brother and told him what happened. He came to pick me up, and we took care of my vehicle. When we got back to my car, the back door was wide open. We looked inside the car, and nobody was inside and nothing was taken. I had some of my music equipment in the car, and she didn't take any of it. All she did was open the back door for some reason. My brother joked that she probably just wanted a place to sleep for the night, but my mind went somewhere much darker. I thought maybe she got into the back seat to hide, hoping that I would return to the vehicle that night. Obviously, I never saw this woman again. This is one of those stories that I'll unfortunately never have any type of concrete answer for. I've heard all the theories of what this woman wanted and what she was, and they all make sense. At the end of the day, I think it was just a strange, nomadic woman who happened to be wandering in this area I got stuck. I tried not to think of the possibility of what could have happened if she had somehow broken into the vehicle. I did learn something in all of this. I always make sure I have enough gas to get where I'm going now, because I never wanted to be stranded on the side of the road again.
Story 2.
This experience is something that still affects me today, even though this happened years ago. My eventual wife Jackie and I went hiking. I would say we were slightly more than casual hikers. We liked to challenge ourselves just a little bit. Nothing crazy like Mount Everest, but we did like to hit the mountains here in the US. Being alone in the woods at night is like heaven for me. I know the thought of that could be scary for some, but not us. Just the sounds of the forest and surrounding nature are beyond therapeutic. When life would get too stressful, we would disappear into the woods for a while, and it was like the stress would just wash away. The bliss we felt from being in the woods would eventually go away forever. The hike started like all our other hikes. We figured out the path we wanted to take, where we planned on camping, and where to avoid the dangerous obstacles. Jackie was good at that planning stuff. A few hours into the hike, Jackie stopped, put her hand up to alert me, and asked me if I heard what she just heard. At first, I didn't. I asked her if maybe she heard an animal, but she said it sounded different. Then I heard it. It was faint, but it sounded like a person screaming. We tried following the screams, and for a little bit, we were getting closer. The screams still give me nightmares. I'm still struggling to write this now. It wasn't just someone shouting. It was someone pleading for help, begging for it. While we were trying to find the source of the scream, Jackie was trying to get a signal to call the authorities. Being in the middle of the woods isn't exactly prime cell service. Each scream made my skin crawl. It wasn't like the screaming you hear in the movies. This felt so much more real and guttural. You could almost feel the pain in each scream and cry. I was yelling back, but the person screaming just kept yelling for help. We tried yelling for this person to give us any sign of where he could be, because we felt like we were walking in circles. But the person continued to just scream and cry. It was like they weren't even acknowledging us. I told Jackie to run out of the forest and go get help, and I would continue looking for this person. The screaming continued for a while, and I never became numb or used to it. Each and every scream made me want to scream. Just as suddenly as the scream started, they completely stopped. Now I started to scream like an insane person. I was trying to get this person to give me a sign that they were still alive, but there were no more screams other than my voice echoing. I kept exploring the area, and I finally found a backpack that was partially hanging from a tree branch. I don't know for sure if it belonged to the person screaming, but I was definitely somewhat in the area of the source of the screams. I looked inside the bag, and all that was inside was a cell phone charger, a cheap pocket knife, and a generic thank you card that was just signed with "Love Mom" in cursive handwriting. I started to shout for any signs of life, but nothing answered. I looked around the area where I found the backpack, but I didn't find any signs of life, a struggle, or anything. It was like this bag just fell from the sky. I continued to shout, but nothing shouted back. Eventually, Jackie came back and some law enforcement was with her. We told them everything that happened, and they looked like they took everything seriously. We left our hike and went home that night because we were clearly rattled from everything that happened. The worst part of all of this is that nothing came from it. The person screaming has never been identified. There were no new missing person reports in the area. They even tried matching the handwriting with that of mothers of other existing missing persons, and there was no match. This is a strange and unexplained mystery, and all these years later, it still bothers me. We don't even hike much anymore because every time we're in the woods, I can't help but be reminded of how horrible those screams were. They cut deeper than any wound I've ever personally had. I just hope one day this mystery is solved, and that whoever was screaming for help got the help that they were so desperately calling for.
Story 3.
Back when I graduated high school, my girlfriend at the time, Tanya, and I spent the summer taking a bunch of road trips. We were both going away for college in the fall, so we decided to make the most of that summer and see as much as we could. We visited the usual road trip tourist traps, but we tried to sprinkle in some of our own ideas as well. Halfway through the summer, we were bored with the normal sightseeing. It was cool and all, but we wanted this last trip to be epic. Tanya started to look up places that were allegedly haunted since we were both big horror fans. She looked at places that offered tours and places that were technically private property. We didn't see any ghosts, but it was cool to visit a lot of these places. If you believe in that kind of thing, I recommend checking out any number of allegedly haunted places. Maybe it's subconscious, but you feel a certain way being in these places. At least we did. We checked out so many places that I can't even remember how many we visited on that trip. Out of all the haunted or cursed places we visited, it was something that wasn't on the list that gave us more of a scare than any other place. I'm not saying we saw a ghost or something paranormal, but we did see something that seemed unexplainable at the very least. We were wrapping up our trip. We loved every second of it, even though we didn't see anything paranormal. While driving back home, we drove through this small New England town. I hate to make it sound cliche, but it looked like every other small New England town you see in pop culture. The town was beat up and looked poor. I would say it still had a strange beauty about it, even though half the town looked like it was falling apart. While driving through town, we passed an old abandoned church that looked like it had a school attached to the church. It looked just like a Catholic elementary school that Tanya and I went to in our hometown. I was initially joking with Tanya and told her that we should try to get inside the school and see if it looks like our old school on the inside. She didn't take it as a joke. She told me to pull over because we were going inside. As a grown adult now, I would never even think about breaking into a building. But being 18 and feeling good in life, I didn't think or care about any of the consequences of my actions. It was dark outside, so we parked in the back of the school because it was overgrown with trees. We tried several doors to get in, and they were all locked. I thought for sure Tanya was going to call it quits here, but she wanted to keep going. We approached a door on the side of the building that led to the gymnasium. The door was unlocked. We couldn't believe it. We walked right inside like we owned the place. Objectively, it was creepy inside. This place looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. You could literally see the dust particles from the moonlight shining in through the windows of the gym. It also smelled like every animal from this town went into the school to die. We wanted to take pictures, but both of us left our phones in the car, and neither one of us cared to go back. We were living in the moment. On the far side of the gym was a doorway that led into the rest of the school. It was an old brick hallway. It almost looked like a prison. It was super dark. There were small pockets of light from the windows, but that was it. It was barely enough to see in front of you. We walked around the school for a little while. It didn't take long to explore the entire school since it was so small. Other than the horrible smell, it was cool being inside the abandoned school. It was almost like the school was just abandoned one day and left as is. One of the classrooms even had some textbooks on the desk that were open. I regret not taking one with me. One of the coolest things we noticed when walking around was that the school was shaped like a cross inside. The gym was at the bottom of the cross-shaped floor plan, and the hallway that led out from the gym went straight with two paths, one leading right and one leading left. After spending some time in the school and just enjoying the vibes of this place, I heard a weird smashing noise that came from the hallway. At the time, we were in one of the classrooms that was at the end of the left side hallway. I went out into the hall to look, but it was mostly pointless. I was staring into pure darkness for the most part, other than a few shadows from the faint light. Tanya asked if I knew what made that sound, and I told her it must have been a rodent. But before I could finish my sentence, I abruptly stopped speaking. I thought I saw something move at the end of the hall, but it was just so dark I couldn't be sure. Tanya asked me what was happening, and when I was about to tell her that my eyes were playing tricks on me, I got the terrifying confirmation that I didn't want. Something clearly moved. I saw a dark figure rise and block some of the light shining in from one of the open classroom doors at the other end of the hall. I ran back into the class Tanya was in and shut the door. I tried to be as quiet as I could, and I told her that I thought someone was inside the school. She tried telling me that we had explored the entire school and clearly nobody was inside. It had to have been my imagination. I didn't dismiss her because that could have been what happened, but whatever I saw rise from the shadows felt so real. We sat there for a second, trying to compose ourselves. I thought maybe it was time that all these haunted places we visited were starting to get to us. Just before leaving the classroom, we heard something again. Footsteps coming from outside the class and walking in our direction. We both held our breath. Just as it sounded like the footsteps were about to pass the room, they stopped. We looked at each other and knew it was time to make a run for the gym. I quietly made my way to the door before we started our sprint and looked to see if anyone was out there. Thankfully, nobody was out there. I remember trying to rationalize the sound of the footsteps as rodents, even though it clearly sounded like the footsteps of a person. We grabbed each other's hands and made a sprint down the hall, and right before making the turn to head toward the gym, we heard the sound of heavy footsteps chasing us. Not like the light footsteps we heard before. It sounded like a bull was chasing us. Neither one of us looked back. It felt like it was getting close to us as we ran into the gym. When we finally turned around, nothing was there. We could feel and hear something or someone big chasing us, and now nothing was there. It didn't make any sense. We didn't want to find out what happened either, so we made our way to the gym door we came in through. We couldn't get out. I thought maybe the door was sticking, so I started to push and pull the door as hard as I could, but it wasn't budging. We literally walked right inside this unlocked door not long ago, and now all of a sudden the door was locked.
Y'all trapped in there. You trapped in there. That thing ain't trying to let you out.
None of this was making sense. Since whatever was chasing us was not chasing us anymore for some reason, we tried to logically think of a solution. We were semi-stranded in this old school, but it's not like it was a fortress. Even if every door to the outside was locked, we could easily break a window and get out if we needed to. We tried the gym door a few more times, and when that didn't work out, we decided that we were going to run to the first classroom we could make it to and jump out of the window. We sprinted through the gym and into the hall. As we ran about 30 feet to the first classroom on the left, we heard whatever it was before chasing us again. I tried to look, but I didn't see anything. I just heard it. Whatever was chasing us stopped abruptly. I tried looking through the window on the classroom door, and I still didn't see anything except for a large shadow that was cast on the wall across the hall. The shadow was almost swaying back and forth, but not doing anything that was threatening. Tanya couldn't get the window open, so she smashed it with one of the desk chairs. The sound of the window glass shattering caused the swaying shadow that I was looking at to fade back into the dark. I didn't look to see where it went. I just wanted to get out. We were careful not to cut ourselves on the broken window glass, and we climbed out. We were almost on the other side of where we parked, so we quietly ran to our car. We didn't hear or see anything during this last final run. We passed the gym door on the way to the car, and I don't know why, but I decided to see if it would still open from the outside as it did for us earlier, and I couldn't believe it. It was locked. I couldn't explain it. I got into the car, and we drove off. We obviously didn't report anything because if anybody broke any laws, it was us, and we didn't want to get into trouble so close to starting college. We stopped dating once college started, but we stayed friends. We're still friends today, and whenever we see each other, we often bring this trip up. We still share this story whenever we have a chance to share it with someone new. I'm sure there could be some rational explanation for what happened, but just being trapped in that school and witnessing what we heard and saw gives me a lot of pause. The easy explanation was that some person was living in the old school, but that doesn't quite add up to me. Some people might think the story's exaggerated, and you're honestly entitled to your opinion. But we know what we witnessed, and I know I'll never forget my experience being trapped in that old school.
Dang, that's crazy. Story 4.
I'm one of those people who hates the woods, going camping, and pretty much everything that outdoor activities entail. So naturally, my friends planned this reunion trip for us to go camping in the woods. Lucky me. I did vote against it, but I was outvoted. I could have not gone, but I live on the other side of the country now, and I miss my old friends, so I put my hatred for the outdoors aside so I could spend a few nights with my old closest friends. The first day in the woods, we started hiking in the morning. One of my friends on the trip, Derek, has always been the worst. I mean that in the most loving way possible. He's one of the guys who loves to push the envelope too far. I was an idiot to think this trip would be any different. We strayed off the path a little bit, even with all my protesting. According to Derek and a few of my other friends who were on the trip, a lot of people go off the trails a bit because apparently there are caves all over the massive sprawling woods. My friends wanted to find these caves because they claimed it would be super cool. I was less than pleased. When we were already far off the normal trail is when Derek decided to inform me that a lot of the area in these woods turns into private property. I was furious. I wasn't trying to get shot by some crazy wilderness man. They all laughed at me and told me to relax. Just because it was private property doesn't mean we were ever going to get caught, at least according to them. The way he explained it to me is that there are giant patches of woods that are considered private property, but it's not like it's someone's backyard. The area of the woods that's considered private is a part of dozens of acres of land. It helped soothe my anxiety a little bit, but I still was furious with my lovely friends. We walked for a while in a thick brush of trees and bushes. It wasn't enjoyable. Derek claimed he knew exactly where he was going, but I doubted him. We approached this incredibly steep cliff. Not like a cliff you could fall off and die, but just a huge drop-off. Derek joked that we should be careful we don't fall. I didn't appreciate the humor, but because I could tell I was being a buzzkill, I kept my comments to myself. We were walking close to the side of the cliff because that's where Derek said a lot of the caves are hidden. I was in the back of the line, and when I took a step, my foot got caught on a root and I stumbled. It was the scariest experience of my life. I rolled down this steep bluff. I just kept rolling and shouting. I could hear my friends shouting from the top of the cliff. When I finally stopped rolling, I got to my feet and looked how far I'd fallen. I could barely see my friends through all the trees. And when I did see them, they looked like little figures standing on the top of the cliff. I tried climbing back up at first, but that was pointless. I just kept sliding back down. There was nothing to grab onto. I could barely hear Derek shouting, but it sounded like he said go back. And I couldn't be 100% sure, but it also looked like he was motioning his hands in the direction from where we came. I thought it would have been best to just stay put, and they could alert a park ranger to rescue me. But the idiot that I am trusted Derek. I assumed that he must be pointing me to a ledge I could climb back up. I started heading in that direction, and when I looked back a few minutes later, I couldn't see my friends anymore. I started to panic. I just kept walking like an idiot, not realizing that I was probably getting myself more lost. What I found out later was that I was heading in the opposite direction from where we came. I felt completely stranded. I started to shout for help, but nothing responded to my shouting. I was scared that an animal was stalking me. I didn't know what kind of animals lived in these woods, and I was easy prey. Whenever I would try to look around to see if an animal was there, I wouldn't see anything except endless trees. A few hours passed, and my initial fear had gone away. I was certainly scared, but I was in that running on adrenaline mode. I felt relief for about 2 minutes because I stumbled across this rocky formation that looked like I could climb it back up to the level I started at, or at least closer to that level I started. I started scaling the rock wall. It was more like giant rock steps than a wall. It wasn't like I was rock climbing. More accurately, I was taking big leaps and grabbing these giant boulders. Just when I thought the nightmare couldn't get any worse, one of the rocks crumbled when I grabbed it, and I got stuck between 2 rocks. I was legitimately trapped. I kept thinking about that story 127 hours. If you know, you know. I was squirming all around trying to free myself, and it was no use. I finally started to scream. The sun was beginning to set, and I was trapped between 2 rocks far off the normal trail. I couldn't help but fear the worst. While I was trapped and screaming, I kept hearing the sound I heard earlier. The sound I thought was an animal. I was ready for whatever animal was stalking me to come out and finally eat me. But it wasn't an animal. It was a skinny, middle-aged man with a mustache, glasses, and a red flannel. He came out from the tree line. He was almost too skinny. He slowly approached me with no sense of urgency at all. I was begging for him to help me. I was trying to explain to him that I got lost from my friends and I'm trapped. And he didn't say anything. He just continued to look at my situation. Finally, he spoke up. He ignored everything I said and just asked me if I knew that I was on private property. I played stupid and told him I didn't know and that I got lost. I don't know how he did it, but he grabbed part of my leg, moved a small piece of the rock, and I was able to slide out. I started to thank the man, and he just ignored me and climbed back down. Before I could say anything else to him, he told me that I should follow him because my friends were waiting for me at his house. I tried getting him to clarify, but he just kept walking and told me that my friends were waiting for me. I was so mentally and physically battered and bruised that I didn't question him for some reason. I just kept following him deeper into the woods. I was trying to figure out in my head how my friends found his house. It seemed like we were going in a completely different direction and even further into the woods. The sun was almost completely down. I kept trying to ask him questions, or if he could elaborate on any details, but he just stayed quiet except for mumbling a few times. It felt like we walked for a while, and we finally started approaching this big shed structure that was literally in the middle of the woods. It was bigger than a shed, but smaller than a house. He stopped at the door and told me to go inside because my friends were waiting for me. This all seemed wrong. My friends would never just enter a strange man's shed house, especially Derek. I told the man to open the door and tell my friends to come outside, but he told me that I just had to go inside first because it wasn't safe to be outside. Obviously, by now, every alarm bell in my soul was going off. I didn't think for 1 second my friends were in the shed. I thanked the man for saving me and told him I would find my way back from here. So I turned and just ran deeper into the woods. I heard 2 sets of footsteps chasing me as I continued running in the almost pitch-black woods. Eventually, I leaned against a tree and just sat there in the fetal position. I couldn't hear them chasing me anymore, but I didn't want to take the chance of them finding me. I would be blindly stumbling around in darkness, and they would clearly have an advantage. I sat there on high alert for several hours, staying as still as I could. I didn't hear a sound for the rest of the night. When the sun started to come up and I could see, I just started running. I consider myself to be the luckiest person on the planet, because after a few hours of running, I made it out of the woods and onto a road. It was one of the roads we had to drive on to get to the park. I flagged someone down who drove by, and they called the authorities for me. My friends were already with a park ranger trying to find me. When we got reunited, I told the ranger about the 2 guys and the giant shed in the woods, and he said he would look into it, and I honestly don't know if he did. I just wanted to get into my car and go home. They asked if I could tell them how to get back to the shed, and I couldn't. I couldn't even tell them if I ran in a straight line to get back to the road. I was so lost and disoriented. Finding my way back was beyond lucky. If I didn't like being in nature before, I was done forever after this expanding list of nightmares. You don't know true fear until you're stranded in the woods with seemingly no hope that you'll ever get out.
Man, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, bro. That last one, bro, he got saved by somebody who was just, I'm guessing, skin and bones. That skinny was able to move a rock, and he was able to get out, and he saved them. Crazy. But that is the end of this video. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all in the next one.